U.S. President Barack Obama and British Prime Minister David Cameron say any moves to impose new sanctions on Iran would jeopardize ongoing negotiations to reach a deal to curb its nuclear program. At a joint news conference after talks at the White House, Obama made clear to the U.S. Congress that he will veto any legislation that calls for new sanctions. Cameron said he also personally contacted some U.S. senators about the issue. Obama said he is requesting that lawmakers hold off for a few months to see if it is possible to resolve the Iran nuclear issue without resorting potentially to war. He said there is no good argument to try to undermine the negotiations until they have played themselves out. Both the U.S. and British leaders said the threat of further sanctions could also fracture international unity on Iran. But if diplomacy fails, Obama repeated his stance that all options for dealing with Iran are on the table. Even if a deal is reached, he said the West still has a whole bunch of problems with Iran, including state-sponsored terrorism, Iran's rhetoric toward Israel and financing of Hezbollah, as well as differences over Syria. The US, Britain, and 4 other world powers, China, France, Germany, and Russia, are trying to reach a final deal on Iran's nuclear program by a July 1 deadline. The talks were extended after a November deadline was missed. Obama said he still maintains that the chance of a diplomatic agreement is probably less than 50%. Earlier in Paris, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry met with his Iranian counterpart Javad Zarif for talks on Tehran's nuclear program, after discussions on the issue earlier this week in Geneva. A State Department official said Kerry met with Zarif in Paris for approximately an hour and that they agreed to stay in touch and plan to meet again in the coming weeks. Kerry was in Paris to honor the victims of last week's terror attacks. The so-called P5+1 countries want Iran to scale back its uranium enrichment program to keep it from being able to build a nuclear bomb. In exchange, sanctions against Iran would be lifted. Iran says its nuclear program is solely for peaceful purposes. On Thursday, German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier said the nuclear talks with Iran were in a decisive phase and that no more time could be wasted. He said extensions to a temporary agreement could not continue indefinitely.